Welcome back, dear students, to yet another short lecture on the history of English language and literature. And today we shall discuss a very short topic called the rise of Oxford and Cambridge universities. The universities of Oxford and Cambridge are the two oldest universities in England. Both of these universities were founded more than 800 years ago, 800 years back. These universities have produced Britain's most prominent people, scientists, writers, poets, politicians. And collectively, these two universities are known as Oxbridge, Ox of Oxford and Bridge of Cambridge. Now, one thing that we must remember is that these universities were for a very long time tied to the Church of England and was producing mostly clergymen. The universities were tied to the Church of England. But during the Victorian age, during the Victorian era, we see the rise of or the reformation of the Oxford and the Cambridge universities. Now let us talk something about the Oxford University. The Oxford University, it is the oldest university in the English-speaking world, and it is the world's second most oldest university. If you look for information about Oxford University, you will come to know that there is evidence of its existence from 1096 AD, from the 11th century onwards. The university grew rapidly from 1167 when King Henry banned English students from attending the University of Paris. A lot of students used to go to the University of Paris to study. Now, King Henry II, he would ban the going of students to the University of Paris. Now let's say something about the Cambridge University. The Cambridge University was founded in 1209 and it is the second oldest university in the English speaking world, and it is the world's fourth oldest surviving university. So Oxford is the first university of the English speaking region and Cambridge is the second one. Now how did the Cambridge University originate? How did it come about? The Cambridge University grew out of an association of scholars who would leave the University of Oxford after a dispute with the townspeople. So these were formed by a group of people who would leave the University of Oxford. And as I have mentioned already, the two ancient universities share many common features and are often referred to jointly as Oxbridge. Cambridge grew out of the Oxford University. So, dear students, the universities of Oxford and Cambridge are two of the world's most prestigious universities even today. These are most prestigious universities. One thing that we must remember is that these two universities had reached the bottom line of degeneration during the 18th century. And these universities, the universities of Oxford and Cambridge, they had declined. They had deteriorated so much that there was no learning. There was no discipline in these universities. No teaching was, no learning was taking place. No academics was taking place. There was no conduct of examinations during the 18th century. And added to that, the fellowships were mostly reserved only to clergymen. The fellowships were given only to clergymen. Now, what is the meaning of fellowship? A fellow is a member of an academy or a learned society, and a fellowship provides financial support to the graduate students to pursue their graduate studies. Very often these students will not have any responsibilities of teaching or research. So these are the grants given to the graduate students. Now very often the fellowships are mainly based on merits. It is a grant given to scholars to support them in their pursuit of learning. The fellowship was mostly given to clergymen. The sad fact was that it was only given to clergymen. Now, who were these clergymen? These are the religious leaders or the religious priests or the religious ministers of the Church of England. We can say that there was large corruption in granting the fellowship. It was only given to clergymen. It was not made available to the common people. The common people had no access to the fellowships offered by the universities of Oxford and Cambridge. Added to that, the university denied admission to non-conformists. Non-conformists. Now, what is the meaning of the term non-conformist, or who is a non-conformist? The general meaning of the term non-conformist is, it is a person who does not conform to the prevailing norms or prevailing ideas, or who does not conform to the prevailing behavior or views of the particular situation or particular institution. But in the English church history, a non-conformist was a Protestant who did not conform to the governance and rules of the established Church of England. So that is a non-conformist. So admission was denied to any non-conformist. And the text which we have to learn would say that the universities had reached the nadir of degeneration. Nadir is the lowest or the most unsuccessful point, the decline, deterioration. These universities had declined to the lowest level of efficiency during the 18th century. So that was the situation of Oxford and Cambridge universities in the 18th century. Now, in the 19th century, during the Victorian era, we see the reforms taking place in these universities. Some rejuvenation or some rebirth is taking place in these universities during the Victorian era, during the 19th century. Now, what were some of the reforms or rejuvenation that was brought about in the universities of Oxford and Cambridge? We shall see one or two or three of them. The first one is that the examinations were introduced for BA English degree course. Previously, exams were not conducted. Secondly, the publication of 12 most distinguished fellows who excelled in different academies were published. Earlier, the fellowships were reserved only to clergymen. It was not given to common people. Now, the fellowship was thrown open to everyone. And the text will say that the theological fetters were broken. Fetters would mean chain or restraint. So what was reserved only for clergymen is now thrown open to everyone. The theological fetters were broken. And as I said, clergymen would mean the priests or the religious ministers or the religious leaders of the Church of England. So the theological fetters were broken. The fellowship was thrown open to everyone, every common man. The Oxford University will create a school of physical science, a school of law, and a school of modern history. Now, what is the meaning of a school? It means a department or a faculty of a university concerned with a particular subject of study. So during this time, during the Reformation time, during the 19th century, a school of physical science was introduced, a school of law was introduced, a school of modern history was introduced in the Oxford University. In the Cambridge University, the university established honors list for law, honors list for natural sciences, and honors list for moral sciences. Now, what is an honors list? In the United Kingdom, honors list is a list of people who are given special titles by the government or the monarch as a reward for things that they have done. So it is a title that is given, honors. So the university is establishing honors list for law, honors list for natural sciences, and honors list for moral sciences. These are titles given to persons who excel in different subjects. Added to all these, 2 commissions were appointed to inquire into the state of the universities. Thus, order and discipline and efficiency will slowly return to these universities of Oxford and Cambridge, and which had reached the lowest level of decline. And thus we see that there is a revival of the Oxford and Cambridge universities during the Victorian era in England. And the number of students will considerably increase in these universities, and slowly these universities will become prominent universities of the world. My dear students, with this short description, we are coming to the end of our short discussion today. We have discussed a very short topic called the rise of Oxford and Cambridge universities. And for your assignment, please write a short description, a paragraph, on the rise of Oxford and Cambridge universities in England during the Victorian era. Thank you for your patient listening. Have a nice time.